Good afternoon, good evening. This video clip has been taking the rounds, and as you can well imagine, has been well received. Let's just quickly watch it.
You, Mr. Tolson. I'm not the one on the debate team. Are we not engaged in a debate right now? All right. I'll take the affirmative. Take the meanest, most restless nigger. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, female niggers, and nigger infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a horse facing an opposite direction, set him on fire, and beat both horses until they tear him apart in front of the male, female, and nigger infants. Bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males within an inch of their life. Do not kill them, but put the fear of God in them, for they can be useful for future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have.
Well, I think in independent Africa, we are in trouble. And I think a lot of it emanates from that very fact. We do not have the mind. Ignorance has become one of the biggest problems in Africa. Indeed, one can say that Africa is in the dark ages, stuck in the dark ages, primarily for those two reasons: fear and ignorance. We may be in the 21st century, but mentally, we are still stuck in the dark ages. That's why the continent has failed to make progress. In Zimbabwe, we have been independent the last 45 years. And yet, we cannot deny that we have not made any progress at all. Why is it at 45 years after independence, in this day and age, many people out there still do not know what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections? And that's the reason why we failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. ZANU-PF has blatantly rigged elections and managed to stay in power. And 45 years of corrupt, gross mismanagement and rampant oppression has reduced Zimbabwe to what it is today, a failed state. More than 50% of our people are living in abject poverty. That is the reality we cannot deny. Why? Soon after independence, in fact, for the first elections in 1980, the 1980 elections, the ZANU-PF made it very clear to the electorate that if the party does not win the election, the Bush War would continue. The people themselves, the penny should have dropped at that point that this is not going to work. If the party is not in power yet, and already they're threatening to use violence, what more when they're in power? So alarm bells should have started ringing straight away. There were no alarm bells. There's no doubt that in 1980 people voted to end the Bush War, but only to make their situation worse. Because as soon as ZANU-PF got into power, the number one thing they worked on tirelessly was consolidating their power. Within 3 years, the regime dragged the nation into the so-called Gukurahundi massacre. The primary purpose of that was to force the only other party that really challenged ZANU-PF's hold on power, PF-SAPU, to give up its independence and join up with ZANU-PF, which they ultimately did in 1987 by signing the Unity Accords. And that cleared the deck for Mugabe and company to impose the de facto one-party state that has ruled the country to this day. Yes, we have been conditioned to blame the white colonialists. What have got the white colonialists to do with the fact that we have elected buffoons like Mugabe and now Mnangagwa into power for the last 45 years? I've said it before on this platform, and I'll say it again. Zimbabwe, for the last 45 years, had the opportunity to end this ZANU-PF dictatorship, particularly during the 2008 to 2018 GNU. And yet millions of Zimbabweans out there don't even know that the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms. Even to this day, for the benefit of hindsight. We can blame the white colonialists all we want, but we've got to blame ourselves for that. It's not rocket science that the GNU's primary purpose was to implement reforms. It's not rocket science that MDC leaders were bribed by Mugabe to forget about the reforms. It's not rocket science that Chamisa and company have conned the people to participate in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating they're giving ZANU-PF legitimacy. They participated out of greed. Why millions of Zimbabweans out there, even to this day, fail to grasp that fundamental problem with our electoral system beggars belief. Showing the quotation there from David Coulter's book, where he's admitting that the process, the electoral process in 2013 was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical thing to do was to withdraw. But he and his friends did not withdraw out of greed. And yet, many Zimbabweans out there still don't understand that. We cannot keep on pretending or blaming the white colonialists for the mess we are in. One of the things that most people, we have pointed out some of these shortcomings by the opposition have learned is that those ZANU-PF, MDC, CCC supporters have put their leaders on pedestals where they worship them. If you warn them of their folly, for instance, that Chamisa lied in 2023 about plugging all the vote rigging loopholes out of greed, you become public enemy number one. They don't want to hear the truth. How can we have any meaningful change when we are not willing to change and accept the truth? The greatest brainwashing that has taken place in Zimbabwe, particularly the last 45 years, has been our own doing. We have got this blinkered mentality that we want our leaders to be gods, demigods, so that we can worship them. And the minute somebody is elected in any position of power and authority, it is amazing how quickly those individuals begin to behave like demigods. And the very fact that the followers expect them to behave like demigods has only encouraged them to do so. We need to address those problems. While the Black Americans have got Willie Lynch to blame for brainwashing them, I think we have done a good job of brainwashing ourselves. We need to address our own problems, to face up the reality that we are the ones who have elected these buffoons and sellouts as leaders and put them on pedestals. And we cannot stand seeing any of them held to account. We need to accept the truth that these leaders, these buffoons, these sellouts are not demigods, they are mere mortals. And not only mere mortals, They are corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless leaders. We need to face up to that reality if we are ever going to get out of this hellhole that we find ourselves. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.